Imagine if every human suddenly leaves Earth behind to start anew on Mars. What would happen to the abandoned cities, the ecosystems, and the forgotten infrastructure? What would become of Earth's atmosphere, wildlife, and oceans without human influence? How would the planet evolve over time? What challenges would humans face on Mars, and how would they sustain their new society? This is a very speculative scenario, but it's an interesting thought experiment that includes ecology, technology, and human society. Some of the possible outcomes are as follows. Ecological recovery. With no human intervention, most ecosystems might begin the recovery process from pollution, loss of habitats, and climate stress. Cities would gradually be taken over by nature, and most species could experience a comeback. Infrastructure degradation. In the absence of maintenance, vital infrastructure, such as power stations, nuclear reactors, dams, and transport systems, would eventually come crashing down. Nature would sooner or later take back the space, however some threats e.g., chemical leaks or radiation could still pose long-term risks. Atmospheric and climate changes. Human actions are the major culprit of climate change. Without us, there would be less greenhouse gas emissions, which could lead to gradually stabilizing climates. But all the changes that are occurring in the atmosphere and oceans today could take decades or longer. Harsh environment. Mars is much less hospitable than Earth. Its thin atmosphere, extremely cold and hot temperatures, and extremely high radiation levels make any human settlement dependent on a great deal of technological support, life support, and even long-term terraforming. Self-sufficiency issues. To sustain a Martian society, the colonists would need to develop closed-loop systems for water, food, and oxygen. The colonies would be highly dependent on imported supplies and technology from Earth, or whatever was left behind initially. Social and psychological effects. Relocating a whole species to a completely alien world could have profound social effects. Colonists would ultimately forge entirely new ways of life and cultures, but the isolation and adversity of living in such an unforgiving environment could also lead to social tension and disintegration. Loss of cultural and historical heritage. If all human beings were to leave Earth, most of our shared cultural heritage, historic sites, and even possibly knowledge about technology could become inaccessible or eventually degenerate. The survivors of Mars would have the responsibility of preserving and rebuilding such a heritage under very different conditions. Long-term evolution. The two planets would drastically alter. Earth can become in a rewilded state of nature, while Mars would be the origin point of a new era of human evolution. The separation between the environments would result in significantly disparate biological, technological, and cultural evolution during the millennia. In conclusion, were there to be mass emigration of humans from Earth to Mars, we might expect regeneration of natural habitats on Earth with the arduous, long-term process of the establishment of an independent Martian civilization. This exercise in speculation illustrates the deep interdependence of human existence and its environment, as well as the magnitude of the challenge to interplanetary colonization. Although the situation is still safely in the domain of science fiction at present, it does raise fascinating questions concerning our influence upon Earth and our ambitions for exploration in space.